Okay, this is Matthew 2, 1 through 18. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem, asking, "Where's the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have to come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law and asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah, for a ruler will come from you, who will be the shepherd for my people Israel." Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them that the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him too." After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. After the wise men were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother." The angel said, "Stay here until I tell you to return, because Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." That night Joseph left for Egypt, and the child and Mary his mother, and they stayed there until Herod's death. This fulfilled what the Lord had spoken through the prophet, "I called my son out of Egypt." Herod was furious when he realized that the wise men had outwitted him. He sent soldiers to kill all the boys in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under, based on the wise men's reports of the star's first appearance. Herod's brutal action fulfilled what God had spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A cry was heard in Ramah, weeping in great mourning. Rachel weeps for her children, refusing to be comforted, for they are dead. Okay, so the wise men, or the Magi, arrived more than 41 days after Jesus' birth. By this time, Joseph had found a house for them to live in. When he and Mary traveled to Bethlehem, she was just pregnant. It was a 100-mile journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem. There's no way he was going to travel back home with a newborn. So who were the Magi? Magi were guardians of the Persian religion called Zoroaster, or Zoroastrianism. Well, I don't remember what the name is. They were also stargazers like astrologers. They see this new star that they've never seen before. The Bible uses star, angel, and messenger interchangeably, so what they followed may not have been an actual star, since stars don't move. You have to remember, these people back then had never seen lights in the sky that weren't stars. Any light in the sky to them was a star. Whether planet, moon, it was a star. So even a UFO sighting would be a star. History says during this time that the planets aligned. With the naked eye, you could see all the planets as far away as Saturn. This is true because the Romans worshipped Saturn as a god, and even celebrated Saturnalia, and an 8-day celebration starting on December 17th, which went through to Christmas. So if the planets aligned, that was a sign that a king or a person of cosmic significance was born. So they followed the star to Judea. They went to the ruler of Judea, who was called Herod. What prophecy spoke of the Messiah, the King of David, coming out of Bethlehem? Well, it's Micah 5:2-4. So I'll try to find it. I don't know exactly where it's at, but there's Malachi. Okay, Micah. What are we looking for? 5, 2 through 4. Okay. But you, O Bethlehem, if Ephrathah, whatever, are only a small village among all the people of Judah. Yet a ruler of Israel, whose origins are in the distant past, will come from you on my behalf. The people of Israel will be abandoned to their enemies until the woman in labor gives birth. Then at last his fellow countrymen will return from exile to their own land, and he will stand to lead his flock with Yahweh's strength, in the majesty of the name of Yahweh his God. Then his people will live there undisturbed, for he will be highly honored around the world. Okay. So Jesus was born in Bethlehem. He grew up in Nazareth of Galilee and had many followers there. Galilee was in what used to be the northern kingdom called Israel. Its capital was Samaria. Bethlehem and Jerusalem was in Judea, the southern kingdom where David ruled. But the true Israelite will have faith in God, like Abraham. So what does Herod do in verses 7 through 8? Well, I have to go back and look. But anyways, let's see. Matthew 2. Okay, I can't get the page to turn. Okay. When Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them to go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go worship him. So basically, he tries to figure out where the child was at. I mean, where does the star take the wise men? To the house, not the animal feeding trough. The star moved. Does the Bible say the wise men were 3 kings from the Orient or China, like in the song? No, it says none of that. They were not from China. They were priests and Persians from the East. And we don't know how many there were, only that they brought 3 gifts. So they're not kings. We don't even know if there were 3 of them, and they weren't from the Orient. If the Messiah is born a king, the rightful heir to David's throne, how did this make Herod feel? Very threatened. When Herod felt threatened, everyone felt threatened. He was going to make sure he didn't lose his kingship. The Romans gave him his authority by the Senate as a suggestion by Mark Antony. What gifts did the Magi bring to Jesus? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. What were these for, and what do they symbolize? Gold is the symbol of a king. Jesus is king. Frankincense is what you offer to a deity and burn in the temple of God. Jesus is God. Myrrh is a fragrance for anointing a bride or used for a burial. Jesus is the bridegroom, and he's the Alpha and Omega. And at some point, well, obviously everybody's going to be buried, but anyways. What does an angel warn Joseph and the Magi about? To avoid Herod at all costs, for Joseph to flee to Egypt, where he stayed until Herod died. This fulfills Hosea 11:1, which I think basically says what we'd already stated earlier, but I'll look it up if I can find it. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and I called my son out of Egypt. Okay. If Mary and Joseph were poor, how did they survive to travel down to Egypt? They were no longer poor. They had gold. Also, you have Satan's seed, Herod, trying to destroy the woman's seed, the Messiah. This is referred to in Revelation 12:1 through 6. Then I witnessed in heaven an event in great significance. I saw a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon beneath her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant, and she cried out because of her labor pains and the agony of giving birth. Then I witnessed in heaven another significant event. I saw a large red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, with the 7 crowns on his heads. His tail swept away 1/3 of the stars in the sky, and he threw them to the earth. He stood in front of the woman as she was about to give birth, ready to devour her baby as soon as it was born. She gave birth to a son who was to rule all nations with an iron rod, and her child was snatched away from the dragon and was caught up to God to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness where God had prepared a place to care for her for 1260 days. So in Revelations 12:1 and 2 speaks of a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, a crown of 12 stars on her head. Let's look at Genesis 37:9. Soon Joseph had another dream, and again he told his brothers about it. "Listen, I have had another dream," he said. "The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me." This time he told the dream to his father as well as his brothers, but his father scolded him. "What kind of dream is that?" he asked. "Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you?" So, the sun represents Jacob, the moon was Rachel, and the 12 stars were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. In other words, the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's name was Israel. She is pregnant and about to give birth. Revelations 12:3, a red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. A horn is a strong king. 7 heads, or 7 hills. Rome plus 12 kings or Caesars, the power of Satan. Revelation 12:4, a third of the stars were knocked to earth by the dragon. Stars can be translated as angels. Satan rebelled and brought a third of the angels with him. Satan is the god of this age, who blinds the minds of unbelievers, who is behind the powers and authorities. Who gave Herod authority? Mark Antony and the Roman Senate. Also, it can mean something else, because if it's talking about Rome here, I don't know. That could be something I'm missing. Anyways, Revelation 12:5, a son, male child, who will rule the nations with an iron scepter. What did Isaiah say? He will strike the land with a rod, the word of God, with a sword. The part where he was snatched up to God and to his throne, I'm not sure, except that God protected him along with Mary and Joseph, unless they're talking about his resurrection. But Revelation 12:6 says, the woman fled into the wilderness and was taken care of for 1260 days. So that could be Egypt. Just like the Israelites wandered in the wilderness in Egypt. 1260 days is 3.5 years. When Joseph and Mary returned, Jesus is over 3 years old. This part in Revelation is looking back at what happened, so it's a history. The point is that Satan was seeking to destroy Jesus. He's been seeking to destroy the Messiah since Genesis 3:15, and here he uses Herod. So what does Herod do when he can't find the child? He fulfills Jeremiah 31:15 by killing all the boys under 2 years old. Okay, from Egypt to Nazareth, which happens in 3 BC, which doesn't make any sense, but by the way, it says 3 BC. That's because the calendars were off, and so when they corrected it, we ended up out of sequence. They used to believe there were 360 days in a year. Even now, the 365.25 days isn't accurate. But here, I'll read it. But Joseph leaves Egypt and goes back to Nazareth. Herod's son was ruling in Judea. So that's Matthew 2:19. These pages stick. I don't know why. Okay. So when Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. "Get up," the angel said. "Take the child and his mother back to the land of Israel, because those who were trying to kill the child are dead." So Joseph got up and returned to the land of Israel with Jesus and his mother. But when he learned that the new ruler of Judea was Herod's son Archelaus, I don't know, he was afraid to go there. Then, after being warned in a dream, he left for the region of Galilee. So the family went and lived in a town called Nazareth. This fulfilled what the prophet said: "He will be called a Nazarene." And then we're going to look at Luke 2:39. When Jesus' parents had fulfilled all the requirements of the law of the Lord, they returned home to Nazareth in Galilee. There the child grew up healthy and strong. He was filled with wisdom, and God's favor was on him. So Mary told Luke that he grew and became strong and was filled with wisdom, and grace of God was on him. He was 3.5 years old or so. That may be it, depending on how long. This is quite long. So next time we'll talk about the childhood of Jesus.